Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel on YouTube, where Kahuna and I have got the TNT takes for you on Survivor 45. That's right, we're back for episode 11 to review it. I'm your host, Chris. I just had a very quick conversation with Kahuna before we hit the record button, and I said, what a great episode. And he was in the middle of sipping some water, so he left me hanging for a few seconds there. So I was like, Kahuna, am I alone on this? Like, was this not a great episode?
No, it was a great episode. It really was. Like, usually at the final 7, either the 9 or the 7, like when it's got that odd number, it's when you can get something spicy. Unfortunately, the Reba sort of awesome foursome staying 4 strong, maybe, or at least they're still in it, but definitely some splinters there. So it's a really good episode, and maybe setting up an even better one. We'll see.
Now, Jay pointing out the obvious, saying it's way too early. It's 5 a.m. over in the States in Eastern Standard Time. So very, very early, I know, Jay. So what happened was a series of unfortunate events in a row. So obviously, Jake, he couldn't make the podcast this week. Then normally, Kahuna and I would record the challenge at this time, not go live, and then post it at a later stage. But the challenge episode wasn't available to us. So due to my limit time and availability going into the weekend, I said, let's swap things around, do the live for Survivor a little bit earlier. Maybe if there's a few people from Australia that are up at this time, they'll jump on the live. If not, so be it. Hopefully people can watch this later on and enjoy it. So a little bit of a last minute shuffle here, but stay for the content, because I'm sure we're going to have some spicy takes for you. Plus, in record time, I updated the spreadsheet in regards to the fantasy draft. And I think, personally, Kahuna, that's the real reason that Jake is dodging us, because he's down to one person.
Yeah, he hasn't had a good season from the get-go, and it's just getting worse and worse now. So
far out, man. Like, he has had the worst luck this season with his team. Like, I don't know if it was luck or if it was just the fact that he chose the same archetype across the board, you sometimes have to it's a basic strategy when it comes to investing as well. Diversify your portfolio. I don't know if I want to give the trade secrets away, but it's always good to diversify that portfolio. Gabe, welcome back to the live as well, saying we know for sure now Ariba is winning, I think. So bold call being made there. He doesn't think that Jake or Katura has any chance to win this game. Jake was very bullish on Jake last live. I couldn't understand it. Like, to me, Jake is just a walking 0 vote finalist if he gets there. Like, the guy's got no game, no agency, nothing. And at this stage, super nice guy, but I just don't see how he wins it.
I'm just wondering if maybe like the new era sort of thing, like maybe there's I don't know, like there's a lot of Bella on that jury, you know what I mean? Maybe they hold grudges against Reba, and Jake's the last man standing for. He could.
Well, I tell you what, man.
Who knows?
Jay and Jake. Maybe Jay is Jake. Have we ever been able to confirm this? When Jake is on the podcast, where's his hands whenever Jay is sending us a message? I feel like could be one and the same person, Jay and Jake. Like, we're on to you, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
We're on to you. You didn't want to come onto the podcast, but you're leaving your notes in the comment section. And Jay saying none of the Reba 4 apart from D, maybe I think will win. And laughing at my theory. They call you crazy in the beginning until they believe you later on when it's proven right. So I feel like, it's kind of like, I don't want to upset the apple cart here, Kahuna, but I feel like there's something.
Hey, just because you're crazy doesn't mean you're not right.
100%. They say Jake and Katura have no hope. We only got on personal stuff, nothing gamers. I don't see any world. City, welcome to the live. It's always good to have you back, my friend. City saying, so how blindsiding Bruce help people who are at the bottom? This is my thing, right? So we start
Yeah.
the episode off with Katura, like just she's so enjoying the demise of Bruce in the game. It's like, oh, hear that silence, nothing. I can't hear anything. Like he was so his self awareness was not there. Well, I don't feel like Katura's self awareness is necessarily that much above Bruce because she sits very low in this pecking order. Losing Bruce is losing a potential person who wasn't going to go after her. Funny enough, like maybe they had this beef, but Bruce was actually starting to aim at the rebus. He knew he needed some numbers. So I don't get how it helped Jake or Katura's game.
And they were so stoked with it too. They were so
Mm.
like pleased that they made that move. Emily, especially, like she claimed it, like really stamped, her name on it, kind of thing. Jake was so stoked that Bruce was gone, and I don't know why they were so happy for a number to go by the wayside. And here we see the fallout.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. Jay saying exactly, Chris. Gabe saying nice guy, but not nothing works out for him. So it's the Charlie Brown, similar to Owen in one of the previous seasons. I think that was brought up before as well. And then City saying the four Reba have been running the show since the merge, which I know City you're kind of low on the season. I am still high on the season. I think it's it's definitely the best New Era season, and I haven't really thought about where it ranks in all of the seasons, but it's up there. Like Survivor just works with 90 minutes. And I know I sound like a broken record. Every single podcast I come up with this very cold take by now because everybody has been saying it the whole season, but it really does work. I do want to talk about the Dee and Austin relationship because people have been calling that out, Gunnar, believe it or not. They've been calling it out since pre-merge. They've seen it. They've said there's chemistry there. It seems like they're looking at each other with puppy dog eyes. I have been very sort of mum on it. I don't know if that's the right word. I haven't said much about it on the podcast because I didn't want to put it out there just in case they were really good friends and they had other things going on outside of the game. It was never really confirmed if Dee had a partner coming into the game. I know that Austin did say he wanted to find his Amber, so it was actually pretty cool to see the whole thing manifest itself within the season. And I really like these two together. They're a cool couple. Like I just love seeing it. But obviously it's gonna muddy the water later on. But what did you think of the early stages here, seeing them sort of coming, I guess opening up to each other and starting to let each other in a little bit?
I think as soon as we had the toe revelation from D, it was over for Austin. He was all sold on the feet that kept her on that pole for ages. It's all
what
over.
A handy skill to have. What a handy skill to have. So but I really enjoyed that scene, and obviously we'll talk about that as we continue on. Now I know there's something that you chose Katura in the beginning of the season because you said she's someone who stands for social causes. She's she's an activist herself. She talks about the fact being a woman, being black and gay, she felt like she had all three strikes against her in life, but she's yet found her way into a very educated job. She's she's out there thriving, but she's done it with some obstacles along the way. And then we hear about the biggest obstacle probably in her life here being this whole cult that she was in. It's unlike any religion I've heard of before. I always hear that those religions exist. Luckily for me, I grew up as a Christian, but I was never involved in any religion that was that cult-like. I can't imagine what it would feel like to be in that situation like she was as a kid.
Yeah, it kind of sheds even more like dubious light on the letter from home as well. Like if there's probably some form of PTSD or some sort of trauma associated with that lifestyle where she left it and discommunicated herself from that, cut off her own mum, and then like we hear more and more about how it could be even more traumatic, and then they're like, oh yeah, here's that letter last week. I'm hoping they had permission beforehand, because the more we learn about it, the more it kind of feels a bit funny, to be honest with you. But yeah. I've not been in a situation like that, obviously. I think it's hard to break away from not just what you've known, like what you're taught, what your sort of your parents, everything is sort of telling you one thing your entire life, and to kind of make your own, stand on your own 2 feet, really says how strong she is in that regard. And I think it
Mm,
only adds to what I said, like on as a preseason thing, like when she finds a cause, obviously she wants to fight for it. I'm just sort of a little bit disappointed that her cause this season was Bruce, and getting him
yeah.
out so one-eyed. You know what I mean? One purpose only.
Jeez.
So yeah,
Yeah, it was sad to see. It's like Gabe said here, the Katura thing was obvious to get the audience to emotionally attach with her after so long just being the hate Bruce lady on the
yeah,
show, because that was her whole
yeah.
storyline. So where were
There's
they going to
one
go
note.
next? Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, sort of where they were going to go with her. But Palavagul, welcome as well to the live stream. I just noticed you've popped in as well, saying, "Hey guys, hey Chris and Kuna." What an episode, right, Palavagul? I don't know if you've seen it yet. If you haven't, jump out, go watch it, and then come back and watch this later on. But it was a great episode overall, and a very interesting scene here because obviously, it starts off again. There's just certain things about Katura, like listen. I hear where she's coming from, and all the credit to her. All the credit. Like, she has done amazing from where she's come. I can't imagine what it would be like if you're in a cult and someone says you're going to have to marry the leader, and you're still a kid yourself. You're 14 years old,
Yeah,
and
man.
you're being promised as a bride to the leader. Like, it's disgusting. Like what she had to go through.
Yeah,
But prior to that, I had a laugh at her expense when she was talking about like how good she feels about fooling Jake about the lawyer thing still. Like, how's this still a thing? Like, just get over it. Like, she gets really fixated on certain things where I'm like, why are you getting so fixated on this?
yeah.
And you feel like you haven't done any strategic moves in the game where you've outsmarted someone yet. So now outsmarting Jake about your profession, that is the thing that you're getting a kicker out of, which I just don't get, But they started it off with
Like I
that.
said,
And
it
then
makes more sense when you know the whole cult thing, the singular focus, the very narrow, but
But I
it
feel like
makes
she's
sense.
broken out of that. I feel like she's broken out of that. Surely, like hopefully she's broadened her horizons. She went to school. She caught up. She went to uni. I mean, again, what a story! Like, Survivor's got this
Yeah,
ability
for
to find
real.
people. But what I feel like what makes this, and it's so bad because we're talking about someone's actual experience and the real life thing that they went through. What makes it less impactful for me as an audience member is because they chose to reveal it so late in the season. Because I already know Katura's not winning this season. If they
Yeah,
revealed it earlier in the season, maybe I would have. And it's probably because she didn't reveal it earlier in the season. So you can't really blame the editors either in regards to this. But I just feel like there hasn't been enough backstory with this character for me to like fully get behind them and say, yes, they need to win this season. They've played a phenomenal game. So it's interesting. Let's have a look at what people are saying. Jay saying, makes me think that Katura could go home next episode. Yeah, I was fearful for her, Jay, when we saw this episode. I was like, okay, this is the one. If it was the challenge, we
yeah,
know they would have gone home because the challenge does that to us a lot. And she got personal content. Everyone who got content in previous eps went home, like Kendra, Bruce, and now Emily. Very true. And I was bullish on Emily after the previous episode, but clearly the edit wanted to show us how much of a threat she was in the game. And this episode, I was so nervous for various reasons, but we'll get into it because my draft as well, I was just like, what's going to happen? But the best possible outcome happened for my draft with Julie playing Idol successfully and then also Drew winning the individual
oh
immunity. So
no,
it actually helped me a lot because I'm one player down compared to you, Kahuna, but that was some
yeah,
bonus points.
yeah. I didn't need the bonus points. I forgot about that. I was like, I didn't even think. I didn't watch. I don't keep that in mind when I'm watching the game, but I should
Oh
just have it
no,
in.
big time. I think it's because I'm crunching the numbers after every single episode. I can't not think about it when I'm watching it and be like, Drew, pull it out, or like, Mama J, you better not go home. Julie, don't go home. Like, play the idol.
Yeah,
So
I don't
my,
know
my
why.
emotions up and down. Have you
I
ever
don't
done
know why I
sports
don't.
betting?
Yeah, well, that's the thing because I used to ruin my enjoyment of rugby
Mm,
league because of Supercoach. Like,
yeah,
I'd be so. I'm like, you missed
you're
that
focused on
tackle.
the
That's minus
individual.
one. Yeah, and I'm like, that tackle. That's minus 1 point, man. Come on, I need it. Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So
Yeah.
it kind of ruined my enjoyment. And I guess I'm a little bit glad that I haven't done that for Survivor, but at
Oh
the
no,
same
it's
time,
there.
I'm surprised that I'm not, to be honest with you. So yeah.
Yeah, especially as the defending champion, right? You want to try and keep that crown. Let's see what other people are saying here. We've got Gabe saying, "I think shows wants us to care about Katura now. Just too late. Even if she gets to the end, don't see Katura winning yet." I agree. Palavagul also agree. Why the split? Gabe says, "Reveal it clearly, so I cared about Katura earlier." Palavagul says, "Chris, I've watched this. Looking for your nice. Okay, well." Jump in, have a seat, whatever time it is where you're at. Enjoy. We're in a different time zone compared to what we normally do. But yeah, what a great sort of opening scene, and then we also get the boat coming into the beach. Now, be honest with me, Kahuna. You're in the game. There's 7 players left. Do you get on the boat? Like, would that have been your natural instinct? Because Emily clearly looked like she didn't want to get on the boat right from the get go here.
Yeah, they were all just kind of keen. Everyone put their hand up. It's like even the ones that weren't necessarily like in danger in air
Mm,
quotes, but I don't know, like at this stage of the game, like what advantage is going to be so powerful to
mm,
offset the target that'll be in your back and the conversations you're missing, and when you do the balance of the things, like that's got to be a really really strong advantage
mm.
to offset for me. So I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you. At least I wouldn't be jumping at it. I'd be curious as hell. Obviously you always want to see what's
Yeah.
going on in Survivor, but if you're thinking about your gameplay, I'd maybe let someone else take that risk.
Mm. I think that it also depends. Like, it's easy to sit on the couch here and say that, but when you're
Yeah.
out there and you can taste the $1 million, like it's right freaking in front of you. You want control in the game, and you don't want anybody that's not in your alliance to have control in the game, right? So I feel like if you're in a big, strong alliance, there is definitely pros to doing it, where if you can trust the numbers that you're with to a certain degree, which I feel like Reba felt they could trust each other starting the episode. And then obviously a certain Bastille had other plans, which maybe divided a little bit of that Reba alliance, which we can talk about in a bit. But, I think that there is definitely a pro to getting on there if you feel like you can trust the people in case you lose your vote. But it's a very
Hmm.
crucial time in the game where losing your vote, I can understand why Emily went there and she was like, I'm not freaking doing it, because she's a logical person. She didn't want to lose a vote. She already failed at a puzzle previously, and she didn't get her. I think she lost the vote for that time when she went onto the island as well. So clearly, she doesn't want to risk it in this case, right? So I understand where she's coming from. But if you're one
Yeah.
of those people with 2020 vision, you're going to always tell Emily, well, you should have played, because if you had safety, you wouldn't have gone home, Kuna, if you're results focused.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends. Like, you have to look and make that judgment based on where you are in the game. And if she thought I'm better to keep my vote and work with the alliance of thinking that she's Drew and Austin, that they've got her closer than others, then you need that power to help what you think your alliance is. You know what I mean? That vote, without that vote, you're not really useful to anyone. So it's tough, but obviously she thought she was closer than she probably really was in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, Gabe's got the best answer here. If you're in a big alliance, send an ally to go and do it. You also still run the risk of doing what bloody Austin have done with giving away one of his idols to Julie
Yeah.
with no, you have to give it back after the tribal council. Like, I really am not that impressed with Austin's gameplay. Like, I feel like the edit is still showing us a lot of Austin. I still have a feeling like Austin could win this season. But I think that at the end of the season, we're going to be able to point to certain things where we're going to be like, I don't know if he had like his finger on the pulse there, but he's been insulated by people with a great strategic mind, like Drew, obviously very good instinct for the game. I think Dee's really good at the game. I think Julie's really good at the game as well. I do think strategically, out of the 4 of them, maybe the weakest person with how he's approached the game, especially with something like
Yeah.
that.
And unfortunately, I don't think he's kind of dominating as he should in the challenges either. Like, I would have thought at this point of the game, once Bruce was
That's why you
he
chose him.
obviously, yeah, well, he obviously did a big win, like when it counted to get Bruce out. Like, that was obviously huge for them. Like, I don't know why,
Yeah.
but I would have kept Bruce to them. But I thought once that sort of obstacle was cleared, he kind of had a bit more of a runway to kind of dominate physically, but he hasn't really like he's obviously won, but he hasn't shown that he could really run away with it and immunity out to the end, which he should be trying for. He should really be like
Mm.
dominating them.
Yeah. And I mean, also, if he does end up becoming the Boston Rob of this season and D becomes the Amber, then we all know how that story ended in the original season. So that would probably mean a D win in that case, which you'd be happy with because you do have
I'd
D
be
in your
happy with
team as
that
well.
too. Yeah, for
so
sure.
so I feel like you're in a very, very good position at this point. Like I see D or at this stage, definitely see D or Austin as the two front runners to win the show. Like, even though they're not on my team, I'm just hoping that Julie and Drew can do some damage before they go, like they did in this episode. Maybe just one or two more rounds of doing damage would do me good to try and get my points up there, and to potentially stand a chance for bonus category points in the future as well. Look at me doing the math about where I want my
Yeah,
team to
but
go. But yeah,
you're in the
go ahead.
lead. Like you're talking like you're not in the front at the moment.
Yeah, but it could very easily, like with Drew and Julie gunning for each other, it could end very quickly for me moving into the final
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah, so I may not even have someone like I think there's a very high likelihood neither of Julie or Drew make the final three at this stage, with D and Austin being the two solid ones.
And they take a Jake or a Katura.
Yeah, it'd be a smart move at this stage. Would be a very smart move because I don't see a world where either of them have a chance of winning this game. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it does go. The other likelihood is like who of Drew or Julie would be with D and Austin in the end. I think that D may win that argument, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Austin has also been really gunning for Julie. Like this whole episode is about
Yeah.
how much of a
Like
threat Julie is.
adamantly as well.
Yeah, and Drew got in his head with that because Drew's the one who kind of spotted it while Emily is gone. They have this conversation on the island about who should go next, and Drew suddenly, and I think he's doing the right thing here. He realizes it's time to play the game right now. Like you need to take people out that potentially could win this game, and Drew identifies Julie as that person, as the mother. People naturally will like her because we have been giving her compliments on how she's address the fact that she's the older lady, address the fact that older ladies in the past have been disadvantaged by the fact that they're seen as the motherly figure and that they can't play a cutthroat game, and how much she's struggled with it. So I think she's playing the jury really well at this stage.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely right. Like, regardless of whatever stereotypes may exist for, a particular type of person in the game, in this game, it looks like she is very popular. Like, regardless of whatever age, gender, blah blah blah. When you're looking around and you go, Julie she's Mama J. Like she's literally that Mama title isn't necessarily a stereotype, but it speaks to the relationship that she's built with everyone on there. And you look at that and going, yeah, I don't want to sit next to that. That's scary at the end.
Yeah.
So it's right to make the move, but I don't know if D's seeing it. D must be ultra confident sitting next to Julie because she wants her there.
That's what I was wondering as well. Or it's just a case of her being very afraid of her own position in the game if she loses the person she's closest to outside of Austin. And she's like, well, I need to get to the end to have a chance to win it. And if Julie gets taken out in this move, then I've just got one less shield in front of me that I can use to get there. So I don't know what her strategy is. She hasn't verbalized how she's going to go up against Julie and win the game in the end, because it seems like Julie is the more liked one between the two of them.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way, especially D doesn't seem to. We haven't seen a focus on her relationships outside of the Reba 4, you know what I mean? Like, or really outside of Austin and Julie. Like, it's kind of her with those two and no one else, it seems like it. But Julie's been, we've seen the sprinkling of the relationships and the way she's sort of interacting with others and being teased with the possibility of turning her back on Reba. So yeah, D hasn't got that, but she's obviously very confident in having Julie with her, which I'm curious as to why she's so confident in that alliance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very interesting. And let's read a couple of the comments here. Gabe says, Austin, I think, will be a casualty of D's game. That would be very interesting. I very much thought he was going to be a casualty of her game this episode. The edit had me on the edge of my seat by the end of this because I was like, oh, is Kahuna going to lose his number one draft pick in this episode?
And he didn't balk on. He didn't even use the like he said. Like if she
Confidence.
uses, I'm using it. Yeah, I was like, oh my god, what are you doing, man? Like,
D must have told him. D must have told him, don't play it. She gave me her word. She's not voting. There must have been a conversation that we weren't privy to, but then it still came down to the fact that the guy's clearly in love with D at this point because what the
but the
hell? Like
thing is,
any
it was
scientist
like,
would have played the idol in that spot. Any
yeah, it
scientist.
wasn't even D. It was his confidence in D's ability to control Julie with the
Yeah.
idol. Like,
Insanity.
whoa, man, like that's, but yeah, third person like trust. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
because
And Julie, while Julie said at the tribal council, and I know we're jumping ahead, but we might as well talk about it. At the tribal council, when the question was asked, does it get easier or harder the longer you play the game to blindside people? And she's like, it gets easier because, we're getting closer to the end. The money is getting real. Mama's
yeah,
got to bring back home the money. I got to make sure the kids are fed back at home, and he hears her saying this and still the trust is there.
good job on the edit though, because like they did catch, like there was a few times Julie did say, maybe this is the time. Maybe I turn on. Austin was a real option. It seemed,
Mm,
according to the edit. So good job for them, man. They like
yeah.
hooked us. I was like, oh no, I was like worried. I was
I was like,
genuinely
the edit
worried.
doesn't get me. The edit doesn't get me often anymore. And I should have
Yeah,
known it's never the obvious thing, right? But I was like, what? Is he going home? Like, did he misread the situation? They got me on this one. They got me good. Jay says, Julie, Drew, and Austin haven't gotten an emotional intro package, so they ain't winning. Katura's intro came in too late at Final 7, and her whole storyline was Bruce before, thus it leaves D versus Jake. Interesting. Yeah, could be. Could be. Gabe says, believe D wants to keep Julie and Austin long as possible because it benefits her game.
yeah.
Gabe also says, and she'll cut them to reach the end with goats like Jake and Katura. Caleb and Jake saying Austin's playing scared and wanting to take D to the end and willing to give up his game for her, and him giving Julie the more powerful idol, and other people saying bad things about him should mean that he doesn't win. Gabe says that Austin is losing at fire or voted out of the fives. A lot of theories coming in here. Palaver says, may I whine like a baby about Emily getting me to root for her and then pulling the Emily still like her? Yeah.
I'm pulling the Emily.
Jay saying, or could he end up playing his idol on D, end up getting voted out next ep? Gabe, he really likes her, so it could happen. That's a possibility. Gabe says, I think Emily was only one stopping at Reba being at Final 3. With her gone, the rest of Rebus can't eat each other now. Last one standing wins now, Jake and Katura. One thing that I do want to mention, and we'll get back to what happened in the episode, but and I guess we're kind of jumping ahead, but we might talk about it because we're talking about this relationship between D and Austin. I had this confidence when all these conversations were happening about potentially going after Julie, Austin uncertain about how he was going to even approach the conversation. Prior to that, I thought that there was no way Austin was going to go against D to begin with because D
Yeah.
didn't want Julie out. So I was actually quite shocked with how much pull Drew had between him and Austin. Like clearly that friendship is really solid. Like they have really grown tight themselves as the two allies that have been together since the start of the game. I thought that maybe he's kind of being persuaded more to go towards D and that he would be happy for Drew to be a casualty in the process. So it gave me a lot of like ease when I heard the conversation between him and Austin, and they were both on the same page in regards to what needs to happen next. But I was kind of surprised at how tight that bond has grown as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Drew definitely won over because not only did he win over Austin, but Austin got D to vote. Like she spilled the beans and made sure Julie was aware of it, but she went along with the vote. Like she said, "Okay, I'm going to vote for Julie, even though I'm telling her." So not only is the influence there from, I mean, maybe it's a good sign that D knows when to, how to pick your battles, which ones she's really gonna fight for, especially because she had an out there with Julie. She knew what she could do. It could actually flip on
She
something.
voted for Julie.
Yeah, so she let that one go. They can have that win. I'm showing you, I play along. I don't know, like there's
Yeah, I
definitely
think she's
some
playing well.
interesting ways it could have come out. Yeah,
I think she's playing a good game. Like the fact that she kind of, went down that line of saying, listen, I'm going to be voting for Julie. I'm going to pretend like I didn't say anything. Like if Julie can keep a secret, which I think she will. I do think that her and D, they're like this. The big question here is, did Julie make the right decision? Because Dee told her to her face, Austin is my number one. Like, if I heard you say, Kahuna,
Yeah.
Maki is my number one, I'm voting Maki out. I need to be Kahuna's number one in the game. So I'm
Yeah.
surprised that she didn't actually follow through. Is this where she lost the $1 million?
And it wasn't even like a cover, like, oh, along with you, or like he's my number one next to you, or like after you, or like there was no cover up, whatever. It was just straight up, he's my number one. And yeah, I don't know. I think maybe that maybe was a time for Julie to
Yeah, I
if
reckon
she
she should
did
have
know
taken the
that,
shot.
should have taken the shot.
Yeah,
Especially if
because
Austin
now,
was sitting on his idol, like would have flushed it as well. And then she's made this huge move. She would have Katura and Jake on her side, and Emily.
and Emily, because she could have saved Emily in that moment
Yeah.
and be like, I couldn't tell you about the idol, but I knew you were in danger as well here. We're kind of in the outs. I mean, the problem here is that Drew and Emily, I think, had a very tight relationship, which we kind of find out about in this episode. We've seen them talking to each other. I've noticed quite a few times that when Emily comes back, every single time we see her and Drew talk before she goes and talks to Austin, it felt like that relationship was very tight with Drew. It's the reason he didn't want to let her go in the game. To me, up until this point, and I've said it a few times, I still think Drew is the true puppet master. I still think he's the one that are pulling the strings in different ways, talking to people. He's willing to do something that a lot of other players, probably in his situation, wouldn't do. The Katuras of the world, for instance, comes up, when it comes to this, where he's willing to go back and talk to Jake after last episode and be like, hey, we can still work together. Like, you're in the outs. I need your vote. Jake is aware of his position and says, I'll cut you guys whenever I need to. But he's willing to bridge that gap. A lot of players don't look at people on the outside as potential options for votes, which I admire it when, someone doesn't forget about the numbers on the outside and they think about how they can use them.
Yeah, like people mentioned it in the chat before, but like now that I think about it even more, considering the fact that Austin knew that Dee had told Julie, they knew that she was aware of it, because they're like, did she know? Like, she was kind of coming across, and they know she's got his idol, and they still like went ahead with it and all like piled the votes as well. There was no split. That's the thing that people wondering, like, how do you not split at all?
How do you
Like,
not
how do
split?
you do
Yeah.
all of it when they especially know that she is aware of what the plan is? She knows what's going to happen, and she's literally holding an idol that you gave her. Like, how do you still just go blindly ahead with it? It could have been.
To me, what it shows is that there weren't enough trust in the numbers that it was going to go where they wanted it to go. But if you had a George out there from Australian Survivor, the split was happening. He was calculating every possibility for him not to be in the firing line there. Like, Drew, this looks bad on Drew, in my opinion, because all Drew needed to do in this situation, right, is put one vote on Jake or Katura.
Yeah.
One vote.
Yeah.
And that would have meant that Julie, with her one vote, wouldn't have been able to be the decider. Because now, if you thought Julie looked good before, suddenly she's looking like a freaking Tony Vlachos out there. She played an idol successfully on herself. She was the sole person. And how often in Survivor do you get the option to be the sole person to vote someone out? And she took out not anyone. She took out, at this stage, what we believe may have been the second biggest threat in the game, and Emily, because Emily's played a pretty stellar game after taking Bruce out. She had all the credit that came with that. People started recognizing her stakes are on the rise. So Julie took that person out with a sole vote, and they all gave it to her. They gave her this move on a silver platter and said, please build your resume further, Julie. Like, please do it. Where if Drew had one vote on Jake, or let's use Jake as an example, or Katura, and she voted for Emily, it would have been a revote. And on the revote, they probably would have been able to save Emily.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's shocking. It's shocking. Welcome, Scott, all the way from Boston, I believe. Oh, no, Chicago. Got it.
Drew had played such a good, like, you're right. He does seem to be the puppet master pulling the strings, but this one, like, they kind of, well, they didn't get lucky. They didn't get what they wanted, but they're lucky to survive. Austin's lucky to survive. Julie very easily could have just turned the tables back on him, made her move there, which I still think she probably should have, to be honest with you. But it could have gone disastrously, and losing Emily is kind of the best outcome that could have happened for the way they played the game. You know what I mean?
100%. Let's have a read at some of the comments coming in because people have been typing away furiously in the background. Gabe saying, I think Emily was the only one stopping Reba being at final 3. With her gone, the rest of Reba can eat each other now. Last one standing wins now, Jake and Katura. Jay says, knew it's going to be Emily since they set it up being Emily versus Julie earlier in the episode, only for them to throw a decoy vote in Austin. But I could tell it was going to be her because they showed a montage. You know, it was funny for me. The funniest scene of this whole episode was the girls being in the water, and they're all just like, they've got nothing in common, nothing that they can talk about.
Spain. These busts are made in Spain. Wow.
Yeah. It's like, it's the typical when you don't have anything in common, you don't have like any rapport with a person, you're like, mate, the weather in Melbourne this last week, right? It's been interesting. It's a lot of rain. Like, what are we going to get on the weekend? It's the weather talk. They just turned it into buff talk out there.
Do you think it should have, like, if you're in that situation, do you at least throw it out there? Like, hey, there's 4 of us girls here. How about we do something? Like, you know, like, but they just,
I feel like they did.
They're happy to, yeah, but they're just happy to sit in, like,
they're all like Jake. Yeah, Jake's the vote, right?
Yeah, true, Jake. Actually. But yeah, no one seemed to take it genuinely. No one seemed to be putting it out there seriously, and no one believed anyone else at all as well. So that, I guess they did try.
It was hilarious. Hilarious. It's just that the women are so divided. They're not working together. Jay saying, Emily's growth arc and that puts the personal content in last episode showed me that Emily was going to go home because they build her up. It's that sudden build and then bang, they slam someone down. Jay said she voted for Julie to make it look like she turned on Julie to the other players. Yep, 100%. Said hello to Scott. Jay saying, can't believe Dee has so much influence over Julie given the disparity in age between them. 100% agree. Drew is pissed next episode. If you look at the preview, he definitely wanted Julie out. Yep, apparently they're not going to be.
He threw something.
What's gonna happen there? Like, Drew, control your emotions, man. Like, you can't like just flip out. Jay saying, especially after what happened with Caleb's shot in the dark, was crazy for not splitting.
Yeah.
Palava Girl saying, the way I read it is Julie would rather keep Dee and Austin because they're bigger fish she can use as bullseye next week. But problem is she's the biggest fish in the pond right now. But she also needs people to cover for her. And Dee is a very big ally for her. I feel like maybe Austin has now taken the shot. Maybe he doesn't again. It's going to be very interesting where this next episode goes.
If she had gone Austin this episode, right? And you keep Emily, then you've got Jake, Katura, and Emily, who are so not unified at all, right? Like, Julie could very well get into that 4 and pick who she wants. Or with Austin gone, Dee will be pissed because, you know, that's her number 1. But at the same time, where else is she going to go as well? She'll come back to Julie too. Julie really could have been in the power position for the misfits that is Emily and Bello, and with Dee as well. Like, and Drew on the outside then of all of them. But now Drew still has his numbers when Julie and him are going to go head to head. Oh, man.
It is going to be interesting because I feel like, you know, suddenly Katura and Jake become very, very good options for someone like a Julie if she feels like she needs to go outside of the rebus and say, we're 3, they're 3. The biggest problem here is Austin.
Would have been better with 4, though, right? It should have been done now.
Gabe says Drew's in trouble now. He loses Emily, his ally. Julie's still around, knows he was after, and has someone obviously coming after him. True. Jay says, overall, this ep just shows the production don't need to introduce crazy random twists and manufacture chaos. The players will do that organically. Preach, brother, preach.
Word.
You know?
Yeah.
The sermon has started, and I am loving what Jay is dishing up at the moment. Yeah. Jay saying people also said Julie will win Final 4 fire making in this episode, which I don't get why they think that. Maybe she's good at making fire at camp. There was that scene, I think, in the beginning of the season where she started a fire. Like, she was the one to start the Reba fire, I'm pretty sure, and she did it really quickly as well. So she is a potential threat. We only saw it once. It's not like the who was the guy last season, the Peter Parker guy. I already forgot their names. It shows you this new era. Carson, that's the one where they kept showing the flames in his eyes. You know, like they haven't overemphasized it. So we all had like that theory. Like, we know what they're doing. He's going to go out in flames. He's going to lose the fire
Yeah,
challenge.
they've stopped that this season, haven't they? They haven't got that at all. No one's wearing
Yeah.
glasses. That's why they can't do it.
That's why, yeah. Gabe saying, D going to persuade Julie to target Drew first instead of Austin. Drew needs immunity. Plovergill says, note to future players, do not brag about a big move like Emily till final. Yeah, what did you do till final tribal council? Survivor 101, 102 new era. Emily, yeah. She just got overly excited because she finally got a big move that she pulled off that she could call her own. But the problem is, your Survivor tribe mates are not your real friends. They're not there cheering you on, saying, good on you, girl. You go, Emily. Do better. We want you to be a badass in this game. No, they're your competitors, and they're trying to win this season. Jay says, I wonder if we could have an all-male final three, Jake, Austin, and Drew, given that they got the boys' night thing 2 episodes in a row. Can you imagine if that happened, Kuna? Survivor would be the worst show in history on Twitter, or X, I should say. People would go off about the misogyny this season if Austin, Jake, and Drew were to get into the final. Clearly, women would be disadvantaged in the game if that happened.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of that 3 specifically as well, though. Like Drew's got to have the argument there, right? Like I feel like that. Also, I don't know what argument Austin and Jake can make if they get there. Now I'm worried about Austin. Like,
I think if Drew, Jake,
know?
and Austin gets in the end, it's interesting. I feel like Drew should be the one to win in that case, but it's no guarantee. Maybe there is a way for Jake in that situation where they're just like, well, we want to go against the guy that didn't wrong us in any way. But it would be a very bad outcome to the season. At this stage, Jake would be, in my opinion, and again, I didn't play the game. I wasn't there. I didn't see a lot of things. Full disclaimer, like just because I know people will say, you didn't see this magnificent game that Jake played out there, and he was doing all these extra things.
Nah.
Well, if he's doing it, let the camera show it. But I just feel like he would be the second weakest winner at the moment from the people that are still left in the game, where it just, that isn't an exciting win for me. It's different if he suddenly, it's still, even if he comes out and have like 2 really good rounds, it's the Chris Underwood theory. Like, should 1 or 2 good rounds be rewarded with a win,
How much do you think they can assess, like, jury management is a very real thing that you need to worry about in a game like Survivor, but not just the relationship, but also you have to know the people that are sitting over there, what makes them tick and how would they decide? 100%. Do they look at gameplay over thing? Do they look at, you backstabbed me, but that guy didn't play any game, you played game? Like, that's such a big, and
everybody's different. Like, you would vote differently to how I would vote versus how Mucky would vote. Mucky would bring back the whole alphabet strategy, and be like, let's start with he'd probably do the number. Give me a number between 1 to 10, and he'd vote on that.
I'm hoping that seeing how devastated Caleb was when he got the chop, seeing how ruined Kelly was, like, they were obviously very into the game. They care about the game a lot. I'm hoping that
Bruce
they wouldn't
seemed hurt.
be that. Yeah, but probably that's more of an ego thing, I think, more than I don't know, like maybe with Bruce. But
are you calling Bruce out, Kahuna? You're saying he's got a bit of an ego.
I'm just worried that would the people that we have currently, do you think they would do a Jake vote, knowing that he hasn't shown that he really deserves, like, as far as gameplay goes, knowing who's there? Do they make a vote like that, or do they vote based on gameplay?
Maybe he wins based on the fact that he fainted twice and he kept going. And they're like, mate, like, you could have quit at any time, but those 2 feints, you got straight back up. You showed us what a true survivor spirit's all about, and you kept going. I don't know. Like, I just haven't seen anything from Jake. Like, listen, nicest guy. I'd love to sit down and have a beer with the guy, talk to him about Survivor. Mateship. Love the guy. Great guy. Just I don't see it. And I would happily be wrong at the end of the season. And I will admit that, Jay, I know you're in the live. I would admit that you freaking saw it from day one and that you saw something that I couldn't see. I will admit it. I will eat my humble pie, but I just don't see the way at this stage, So I know that if the final happens and he does win, Jay's going to be right in there and he's going to be like, told you guys, told you. I see you, Jay. I see you, buddy.
I do like that with the Bruce thing. I said that maybe it was more of an ego. Like, I think it was Jake. Yeah, it was Jake when he was saying, like, it feels like a before Bruce and after Bruce, like, game. Like, by getting rid of Bruce, we now look like it's towards the end. And I think that's a little bit of, like, catering to that ego, like that he was
Mm.
such a pivotal part of the game. You're so important to this game, Bruce. Now that Bruce is gone, Bruce, like you're so good, Bruce. Like
He
it,
was
it
only a
felt a
returning
little bit
player.
pandering.
He was supposed to carry the game. Gabe says Jake would be a modern Fabio if he wins against Drew and Austin. Wins because Jury hates the other two more. Scott saying, before Jeff read the vote, I knew Julie had voted for Emily, though I hated to see it. Yeah, it was bad. Also, his favorite line of the night, there goes a badass. There goes a badass right there. And it's because she, like, listen, Emily, once again, like, if we're doing a eulogy on Emily's game, I just want to say, I started off really hot on her, but I feel like it was warranted when I did. According to Jake, it was 6, 7 episodes, and I'm pretty sure it was the first 3 episodes that I was pretty bang, bang, bang on her, but for good reason, because the edit
Yeah.
was showing us that she was trying to make a bloody square peg fit into a round hole in the beginning, and it just wasn't working. But I take my hat off to someone that in the middle of a stressful game like Survivor can learn to adapt who they are at their core as a person and also find growth to the point where they're now going to take this outside of the game because she's learned this valuable lesson that maybe you attract more bees with honey, than anything else. So she gets it. There's got to be a balance between the stick and carrot in life. And she's now gotten that vital skill. And it's definitely improved the game to the point where she left. She even turned around and said, I will vote for the best person. And I respect that. Nothing
Yeah.
but respect if you can look at the game like that.
The fact that we've got someone like Emily and we've known her so well, and we're talking about her arc and her journey and what we've seen her do, and she really has become the MVP a little bit of the season. And the fact that she's in 7th, I think, is a testament to what you were saying. Like, this is a good season.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very good season as far as characters go. And much of that's because of the 90 minutes. We've gotten to know more and we've got to see more and they get to show us more. But the fact that someone like Emily, we know so well, is going out in 7th, I think says that this is a good season. Like, we're having good characters.
Oh, 100%. And Palava Girl, you get my vibe. You get exactly what I'm on about when I say that Twitter or X will go off when this happens if there's a final 3 with men in there. I'm tired of those arguments to a big degree at this point because we get different seasons with different variations of things playing out. We've now had winners of all shapes and sizes and colors and things like that. Like, you get variety of people who will win the game at different times, and we'll continue to see it because the game is truly more inclusive than what it's ever been. And because of that, it will continue to give us winners from all different places, all walks of life, which I'm very happy about. But I feel like having those same arguments about it would just be crazy at this stage if it did happen, because there's been, I think, a great mix. Like, even coming into this episode, we had 3 men and 4 women, and we're now back down to 3 men and 3 women. So it's been pretty equal throughout. And the last thing you want to do, Kuna, if you're a player, like, I would not care about what anybody else is thinking outside. If I connect better with women out there, I'll be playing with the women. If I'm connecting better with men, I won't be thinking, oh, the optics, if I vote 3 women out in a row, it's going to look really bad on me. If I don't get along with the 3 women that I'm voting out, or they're playing a horrible game and I don't want them to take me down with them, I'm voting their asses out of there. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm doing whatever's best for my game.
100%. And that's how you got to play the game. But yeah, we've gone on such a tangent and we've spoken about so much. But obviously, what did you think of the twist, the Advantage Island twist, and seeing those 4 different, I think it was 4 different rings with the rope in the inside, and they had to like find a way to untangle the rope. Like, we've seen this challenge before, I believe. It may have been when they did like Sweat and Savvy one season. Was it in the beginning of this season where they had to take the rope out? I feel like it was this season where they had to remove the rope from those 4, basically those 4 rings. It looked very similar.
I can't remember now.
Similar. I feel like,
this is my memory, man. I'm old.
did they actually do that to us? Because we normally give them crap for like using the same challenge from one season to the other season.
I mean,
I feel like they just used it in the same season.
I mean, even, every challenge now, I feel like I've just watched it last week. Like, I'm like, is this like so much of it? I'm like,
I'm with Teal Trooper here. Teal Trooper, yeah, it was a bit mad. I do think she made the right decision if she didn't want to back herself in regards to that. Now, the immunity challenge, obviously, my boy Bastille, also known as Drew, for those that don't know, he does end up pulling out a win here in the immunity challenge. Like, That came from nowhere. Like, I did not expect him to be the one throughout this obstacle course where they had to untangle the rope. Love the fact that they had to like make a judgment call on when to run, and then if it wasn't far enough, they had to go back and untangle it further, get
They
over the
do it
obstacle.
so many times, eh?
They
You
do, they
gotta go
do.
over. You gotta go over. Like, you spend that extra minute, that extra 2 minutes
Worth it,
there at the start,
especially with your
rather than
energy.
running 5 times. Yeah, like, holy crap, they had to do it like, Jake did it, like, 4 times or something ridiculous. Like, some of them weren't
Yeah.
even getting halfway, and they're like, "I've got enough. Get out of
Mm.
here." Like, where's their, perception of depth or whatever it is? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not there. But I will say one thing. You can tell Drew's not an athlete when it came to throwing,
The
because
first
those
throw?
first couple of throws is like, what's going on here?
Yeah. I think it was made worse because he had like a majority of his throwing, like he couldn't go too far. So he was doing the
Mm,
little gentle throws to not let the bags go far because of his rope, which I thought it
mm,
was a really interesting thing as well because Austin didn't think of that at first. He got
yeah,
there and I'm watching Drew. I'm like, oh, he's doing gentle throws so that he can still get the
doesn't
recovery.
overthrow it. Yeah,
And then Austin comes and he goes whoosh, and just smacks it as hard as he could. I was like, he didn't see Drew obviously the first time, and then he
yeah.
could only get one bag each time back. So yeah, it was interesting in that regard. But everything is just generic again, the same look, the same feel. It's like jump over
Mm.
this, climb over this, put the puzzle together at the end. It's always
But
the
I feel
puzzle
like
at
it will.
the end.
I do feel like to a certain element, like it's always going to be like that. I do think Survivor should do better, but I've made peace with the fact that they will regurgitate a lot of the same challenges over and over, because Survivor's very budget conscious at the moment. That's why they went to less days. They say it's for
Man,
COVID. I don't agree. I feel like if it was for COVID, they would have gone back to 39 days by now. It's budget conscious because they know they don't have to spend as much money shooting the show. As long as they do that extra, days that they're shooting out there, adds more money to it and takes away from the bottom line, as well. So I
it's
think, like,
just
even with yeah,
you mention it all the time, and again, we don't want to bang on about it, but
no,
just the timing again was because we were going to
cook yourself
rewatch. Like,
barbecue. It was like, what kind of reward is this? Like, you got
yeah,
to cook your own
but
food.
but also I watched it like we always make the comparison, but I watched it after the challenge, and we'll talk about the challenge on Saturday. But
Right.
when I was like watching the challenge, and they were like, "There's you have a
Oh, don't tell me
tower,
about the
and you
challenge,
have to
because I haven't
build."
seen I haven't seen the
Okay,
latest
right,
episode yet. So yeah,
very like the
yeah.
way it turns out is whatever, but again, big scale. Like you hear what it is
Mm,
involving, and you go, "Whoa!" And then on
yeah.
this one, they're like, "Yeah, crawl through the sand and do the puzzle at the
It's
end." I'm
it's
like,
tough. It's tough. But I think a lot of
"Yeah,
people don't watch Survivor for the challenges specifically. There's a lot of people who kind of like fast forward through a lot of the challenges, which is a shame, because it is a staple of the show. I do wish that they would bring in more of the endurance like challenges like they had
yeah,
last week, where the fact that they had to like stay up on the platform decided who was going to win, and obviously that worked out in Austin's favor. But I like seeing those kind of challenges, and especially for a final immunity, I feel like it should always come down to who wants it more, who can dig in
that
deeper.
the Aussie final one, like the way we
100%.
always
The
get that,
torture.
yeah, the
Do
torture
like
one."
a torture device, where they're
And
having
they
to stand on
usually
like
have it with
spikes.
an awesome background. It's overlooking
Yeah.
crashing waves, and then a storm will start, and it just looks spectacular. They
Mm.
do need that real test, but
They
they don't
used to
do the
do it
physical.
back in the day. They used to do it
Mm,
with Survivor in the US in the early days. Like, I mean, obviously the first one where they had to stand on those little podiums with Richard Hatch, Rudy, and Kelly. And then also, like, one of the ones that stands out to me was like Tom. Was it Katie, the name of the girl that season? And then the young guy that season as well. My memory isn't as it used to be. And then he like guilt tripped him into jumping off at the end so he could win the final immunity. There was some great endurance challenges, and that one went on
yeah,
for ages. And they got to the point where it was like daytime to nighttime when they were doing it. So I'd love to see stuff like that come back more for individual challenges, and maybe like bring a little bit more athletics back into it. But again, we've spoken about this. The cast is very different because they're now being more inclusive. They get people on the show who aren't necessarily the athletic type, like an Aussie, that could do well in some of those grander challenges. They're trying to be more inclusive in their challenges for everybody to be able to participate to a certain degree on them. I think, we may have gone
yeah.
down a rabbit hole here. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. If they're absolutely disagreeing with us, well, Jay does agree with me about Bruce being pissed off. I think that was easy for everybody to see. Beloved Girl is saying, it makes me sad that we can't let the game play. Who cares? Yeah, okay, we've already seen that one. Jake would be the one. Yeah, we've seen that one. Let's have a look. Kahuna. Emily made me like her because she grew in front of our eyes. Yep, 100% agree with that. Gabe says Australian Survivor, we at least get those torture devices at the end. I agree.
Yeah.
Love Australian Survivors endurance torture devices. Austin not understanding both sides of how to spell the words. Yes, like he just had a brain
He looked
freeze.
at
Like,
it for so long.
yeah, Jeff told him. He's like, it's got to match both sides, and he's just like, it's like he glitched. It's like he glitched in front of our eyes, and I knew Drew would get the puzzle very quickly. When he got to the puzzle, I was like, it's game over because the guy's smart. We saw it when he even got his, tribal council pass earlier in the season, that he can solve puzzles really effectively. And I had faith in him, but he really struggled at just getting that puzzle to stick. And I will say this, we've seen this arch puzzle before, but it's still a puzzle I feel like that is worth bringing back just due to the fact that it actually takes a lot of skill to do that puzzle.
It's definitely a high degree of difficulty and like coordination. You got to make sure you've got your blocks laid out in the right order for pickup and all that, which I like that they figure out over time as well. Like when they first get there, you try to brute force it and go as quickly as possible, and you realize I can't pick up that brick over there because I'm holding 6 of them. So you kind of have to figure out the best way to do it and attack it, which is always kind of interesting, I guess. I am talking up now. The challenges.
Yeah, I like that challenge. I think it's interesting. Obviously, it's the dynamic. I think that maybe what Survivor is trying to do is by doing as many different things, and like it's almost like some of these individual immunities feel like it could have been a team immunity challenge. Like, you almost want to do less when it comes to it, where it's like one element to actually doing it, or maybe 2 elements to doing the final thing, where they're trying to like put 4 or 5 different things with an obstacle course in there with the puzzle at the end. So it kind of feels like we're seeing the same thing over and over. And this kind of brings up another thought I had, just with the season as a whole, because I agree with you. Best season we've seen in the new era. Survivor clearly needs 90 minutes. It should continue down this road. Loving the season, loving the characters that they're building. The weakest part of the show, and I'm hoping that if anybody listens to this of any kind of note, they at least take a point of this. The weakest part of this season has been the pre-merge, because the pre-merge is boring as hell in the 3-tribe format. It's very restrictive in regards to what you can do. We're loving this season because of how well it's played, or I think played out after the merge onwards. But for me personally, the pre-merge was a bit of a
I do hate
drag.
the small tribes. I hate the small tribes.
Yeah,
and it was
too,
also
too repetitive.
tainted by the quality. Like I was still enjoying it, but the fact that we
People
had 2
quitting
quits and a Brandon, 2 quits and a Brandon, it made it. But it's still good. It's still good. So that says a lot, I think, that it overcame a difficult start.
Yeah. Scott says, I agree that the final challenge should be an endurance like the first season. I'm glad to hear that, Scott. Definitely would be better. Beloved says, I second what you said. Emma's definitely a legend in the making. It'd be great for her to be back for a new era All-Stars or good old returning versus newbies. She got it. I feel like we should do an All-Stars cast between seasons, because we've now had enough since the new era started that we could easily go and you and I and maybe Jake jump on a podcast and just pick people that,
like that.
we're nominated. So I think we can do like something like that maybe in January when we've got like that little bit of a down period. Gabe saying, but the Sabia vote was a really good vote. I did enjoy that one. Scott saying, bring back Emily, Caleb, and Jake for another season. Yep. Yeah, I could see that. Maybe Bruce for the 3rd time. I feel like a lot of people have been dying. A lot of people are not as high on Bruce as they used to be. I love it. Like, I love you need people that are a little bit different coming onto the show. It brings a little bit of that, Coach, Philip Shepherd, Rupert, like the people that stand out are the people who think different and act different and walk different. Roxroy, get Roxroy back on. I really enjoyed him. So yeah. But anyways, looking at this, I feel like we've kind of touched on all of the major points here for this episode. We kind of have gone in circles and have spoken about a few things. So let's look at our draft. Let's look at how things have been stacking up for us in regards to that. And then if there's any final things you guys wanted us to discuss, pop it into the live. I will have a look at it after the draft. Let's have a look. There we go. That was our teams coming into this round. obviously I was sweating bullets when Julie was potentially going to go home, like I said earlier, but she played that idol, which definitely helped me on the point side of things. Poor Jake ended up losing another player, which means he's now down to one. What really hurt him is the
Oh,
fact that he's
man.
been down to like 2 players for a very long time, where we've had that numbers advantage. We've been able to, sort of, stack up on points due to that, which he hasn't had that benefit. But looking at the points, no surprises here. Jake is still in dead last at 196. He's trying to get over that 200-point mark before the end of the season. His top player was Emily at 72 points,
Yeah.
and she is now out of the game. Jake is the second highest point getter at 56 points. And yeah, it's if you looked at his third highest, you have to go all the way back to Jeremiah for 36. That's how long ago he had like a really good point
Whoa,
getter for him.
Jay.
Yeah, so
He's
it's
already
tough.
looking forward to 46. He's like,
I'm telling you,
he's
man, Jake, you know that look that Bruce had in the tribal council? Jake is sitting at home, and that's how he's watching the season play out, like with that Bruce face. He's going to have his game face on when the new season starts. But looking at second place, you are still in second place at 371 points. I have remained at the front, and I've continued to have about a 21-point gap between us at 392. So it's not too crazy heading into the final stretch here. A lot can still happen with a lot of points still up for grabs, but in your team, and also the second highest overall point getter of the season so far is Austin at 94 points. It's followed then by D at 75, and Katura had a massive week, jumping up in the confessionals by quite a lot. She is now at 73. Only 2-point difference between her and D, which is quite interesting to see. She's had 11 more confessionals than D this season. So clearly all that Bruce content has really helped her this season. And then in my team, the overall highest point scorer of the season, and he has been the overall highest point scorer for a while, is Drew at 99 points. He's 1 point off from getting to 100. And then Julie in second place at 80. Obviously, having Julie played the successful idol this episode meant that I got 10 points for that idol play. And then Drew winning the individual immunity was definitely needed after I lost Bruce, who was my immunity beast. I got 8 points for that. So 392 in total. Points that are still up for grabs when we head into the end of the season is going to be runner-up 25 points, winner 50. So if you do end up with Austin and Drew as maybe number 1 and 2, that's a good 75 points still up for grabs there. We also have other categories open here, which is for most confessionals, most individual immunity wins, most advantages found, least votes casted against them, and most advantages played correctly. All of those will be 25 points. And I've got a feeling that we're in a position, Kahuna, where we're probably going to get to the end game, and the bonus points will determine who's going to win the season.
It's
going to matter. It's why I'm enjoying this season, because last season you were that far ahead of all of us. Like that, even though I had Yam Yam and he won the season, I couldn't make up the points. You had all the characters.
Confessionals, that's going to be Drew.
Yeah, confessionals and challenge wins and things like that.
Found. There's still a few more still more challenge wins that I could get, hopefully, with Austin. I thought D would be better at challenges as well, being the CrossFit girl.
Same. Yeah, she's only won the one so far. So at the moment, it's as it stands, Bruce will get the most challenge wins. As it stands, Julie and Caleb would get the most correct advantages played. So I've got 2 potential 25 pointers there, unless Austin can tie them up for that, which means that we'll kind of equal things out, because we won't get it. We won't get it for each player. So if they're all a draw, where both teams will get the 25. I have to think through that. Yeah, because I feel like that's how we did it last time. I'll actually have to look in regards to that, how it does play out what we did last season, if we gave it for each one player that fitted that category. I would say the 25 points should probably be equally divided between the 3 players or something like that, but we can talk about that off air. We don't have to bore people with the semantics of it. But so those are kind of the people that are looking like they're in a good place. Then most advantages found. Who would be that player currently? Find advantage. I think it's Drew. It is Drew.
Of Austin?
Drew and Austin, both equal.
Right.
Yeah. And then least votes casted against them. We have to look into that. Most advantages played correctly. That would also be currently in my team, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's interesting. We'll have to see where that's going to end. Most confessionals for the season, that's also Drew at this stage. So you kind of Drew's like he's the overachiever at the moment. So he's
Drew's
the
gonna go
guy you're
out.
like
I need
you're
Drew
going to be
out.
like Drew's a wanted man for Kahuna next episode.
And the last pick, didn't even
That's
want
what
him
I
on the
love.
team.
I want him to win just
Man.
because he was my last pick. That's why I want him to win, so people can see I knew nothing. Like if I did, he'd be my number one person. I feel like the heat was on me after I picked Yam Yam last season, and I picked him for confessionals, and he ended up winning
I
the whole
think Jake
season.
picking Brandon and then Hannah with the first 2 picks is amazing.
Gabe feels good. Gabe
Come
feels
on,
very
Gabe.
good.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at what people are saying here. We've already seen that one. Scott saying, I've had enough of Bruce. That's fair. That's fair. Palava says, Babe Ruz, just caught your comment about Majeki. He ain't no Fabio. Heard his Boston accent. Wicked. Love me the Boston Jake. Palava says, apologies to Gabe Ruz.
Gabe
And
Ruiz,
then
not Babe Ruiz. I like Babe Ruiz though.
the Bruce hate helped Kahuna.
Yes,
Yeah,
it did.
definitely. Tom in the live, fellow podcaster here for the Nullified Take. If you like Survivor UK, you'll see him on there sometimes. He's also been on the Amazing Race and Traders content. Says, what the episode just finished in Australia. You guys magicians. Yeah, they call us the Magic Man, like Elton John. You know, nah, the Magic Men, I should say. Gabe says Drew is out next, I think, Kahuna. So yeah, that's a possibility. And then do not sleep on Katura. She's literally built a get Bruce out movement low key because she's edited as a Bruce obsessed, she's building connections by being a Sandra. Yeah. Well, if she was Sandra, she should have sat in the end next to Bruce and failed to get the person out that she wanted to get out. And I'll get some heat for that comment because that's what happened in Heroes vs. Villains. She tried to get, I guess she got Johnny Fairplay out in her season, but she wasn't necessarily after him the whole season. You know, she was after Russell Hantz the whole season, couldn't get him out, and then got rewarded with the win.
Anyone but me is working at the moment. And with the way Drew and Julia kind of turning on each other as well, Katura could slide by a little bit here, like under the radar, because Jake is still the first choice out of the Bella left, and Katura could kind of hide a little bit and maybe get through to the final.
Listen, I'm here for it. I'm here for anything at this stage. You know, I'm in it for the long haul. We've got 2 weeks, I believe, left of content. So 2 weeks more of Survivor coming our way, and then we'll know who the champion is for season 45. I'm very interested to see how it's going to play out. I don't think it's Katura or Jake at this stage, but yeah, I feel like it's a D Austin scenario most likely. Julie, I think, has got an outside chance, but I just don't know how she gets there with the amount of target that she's got on her right now. I feel like they don't want to see her in fire. She gets to fire, she wins that. It's another thing she can add to her resume now, and it would just be very hard to go up against. I would love an older woman win. I reckon it'd be really cool to see an older woman win. Like, when last have we had an older woman win the game? Maybe people in the chat would know. I feel like it's been a while. It's been a very long time, I feel like.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last one.
Tina.
Is it Tina? Like, is it that long ago? Like,
Outback. Season 2.
Well, I feel like Deb was it Debbie? Debbie
Oh,
was
who was the one with with Malcolm?
Yeah, wasn't it like Debbie? I feel like it was.
Was it Debbie?
What's the name?
It might be Debbie.
Denise. Sorry, guys. My memory is shot. It's after 10 in the evening here, and I've been working the whole day, so my memory is absolutely shot. Denise is who I'm thinking of, and that was an impressive win because she went every single tribal council and still won the season at the end. So still, in my opinion, one of the most impressive wins when you go to every single tribal council the whole season and you win the show. Like, no one's done it while working harder. You know, she's like the opposite Chris Underwood, basically, for having to. She clocked in overtime every single episode, you know, to get that win. Read the chat, silly sausages. You took too long to type it, Tom. It's your fault. There we go. Anyways, that is it here for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of the conversation. If you like this content and you want to see more and help this channel grow, we'd very much appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the like, putting the notification bell on so you can know next time that we go live. For those that are challenge fans, we will be live this weekend in our normal Survivor time slot on Saturday. Check out the YouTube channel. Go to the YouTube channel. It should be under upcoming lives. It'll have the time stamp on when exactly it is. I believe it's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that we will be live on Friday evening over in the US. So make sure to jump in and take part of the conversation. But for now, grab your torches, head back to camp. We'll catch you guys next time.